Welcome to episode 1 of 100 Movies That Everyone Should Watch. Today we're going to be covering the 2010's decade. If you're curious about what this series entails, make sure you click on screen right now to watch this introductory video. And if not, let's get right into our first movie, which is Birdman, or The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. Director Alejandro González Iñárritu delivers in this surprisingly funny drama and satire about an aging Hollywood actor. This is a movie that I would consider to be nearly perfect. When it comes to the performances, all the actors did a pretty great job at playing over-the-top Hollywood actors, but at the same time, they also made sure that they felt like real people and you could connect with them, you felt sorry for them, you laughed with them. On top of that, this movie sucks you into the world of film. The movie is filmed and edited to look like it's one entire shot. This movie is so well written, and it's about love, betrayal, and true friendship, and it is the first of 100 movies that everyone should watch.
Who are you?
Sam, my daughter.
Oh, your daughter. Wow, that's amazing. You don't look anything like each other. What do you do?
She's my sister. Works for me.
And does she talk and speak?
She does, yeah.
Next up is Her, which tells the story of Theodore Twombly, a man who begins a less than conventional but still loving relationship with the operating system on his phone. I would consider this to be the best romance movie to ever hit the big screen, and the reason I say that is how honest this movie feels. Spike Jonze has a very unique directing style in the sense that he's able to show off how the characters feel. The audience is able to relate to this movie because it tells such a universal story, but also shows that love isn't always traditional. In addition to being an incredible movie with great performances, a unique visual style, and a story that makes you think, this movie is on my list for being able to freely address social issues.
So what was it like being married?
No, it's hard for sure. But there's something that feels so good about sharing your life with somebody.
12 Years a Slave is a movie that is able to bring you hope, and that hope comes in the form of Solomon Northup, a free man who is kidnapped and sold into slavery. In captivity, Northup has one goal: survive so he can get back to his family. This is a powerful movie, and part of the reason is how brutal this movie is. The director, Steve McQueen, has no problem with facing the issue of slavery with as much honesty as possible and trying to paint an accurate historic picture. This movie is defined by great performances, incredible cinematography, and an intense tone throughout. Every single actor in this movie did a great performance. That is just one of the many great parts about this movie. This film makes my list for a few reasons, the first being how powerful this is. The next is how it shows a great transition from a low-budget director to a high-budget one, and how you can turn something great no matter what kind of a budget that you have.
I will survive! I will not fall into despair! I will keep myself hardy till freedom is opportune!
There aren't a whole lot of movies that make you think as much as Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master does. Joaquin Phoenix stars as Freddie Quill, a sexy and drug-addicted World War II veteran who returns home and has trouble fitting in. That is until he finds refuge in a cult-like religion called The Cause. The movie is a perfect example of what happens when 3 of Hollywood's best actors and one of its best directors teams up and makes something great. The reason that this movie makes my list is because it is really one of the examples of movie is being art. It's beautiful, it's incredibly well acted, it's well paced, well scored, edited, and overall is an excellent movie. Every shot, frame, and line of dialogue is perfectly crafted to tell the story that is ultimately about a father-son relationship. If you're someone who wants to see a great example of film, then you're going to love this movie. It is incredibly well made and a great period piece, and overall an excellent example of a movie.
I have never been to the pyramids, have you?
No.
And yet we know that they are there, because learned men have told us so.
Hugo is a great example of what happens when a master filmmaker who is known for one genre makes a 180-degree turn and does a movie completely out of his genre, and it works perfectly. Hugo is a magical adventure that tells the story of a boy living in a Paris train station and the people who he encounters, from a new best friend, a toy maker, a station guard, or even renowned filmmaker Georges Méliès. The second half of this movie acts almost as a fictionalized biography on Méliès, a silent film director who has made some of the most influential works of all time, a number of those which are going to end up on this list later. The movie is visually stunning. The movie was shot in 3D and used 3D right. It's able to take you into the world, but at the same time isn't distracting or overused, so that it perfectly complements this movie. Hugo is fine filmmaking at its finest and shows off the best of Martin Scorsese and Georges Méliès.
Once upon a time, I met a boy named Hugo Cabret. he lived in a train station.
The Social Network might be David Fincher's best film. Telling the story of Facebook creator Mark Zuckerberg, The Social Network shows off how an interesting story can go so far. The movie has got some pretty incredible performances by a cast that prior to this, you really wouldn't expect to see these great performances out of them. On a technical level, this is the definition of perfect. Great camera work, soundtrack, lighting, and a great tone define this masterpiece. One thing that I love about this movie is that it really isn't about the creation of Facebook, but instead is about the relationship. And a relationship that is ultimately ruined by social networking, which might be a little bit of a social statement that was made. Anyway, this movie makes my list because it is a movie that is almost universally liked. If you're someone who isn't the biggest fan of critically acclaimed movie, chances are you're probably going to love this one. But if you are a fan of the art of filmmaking, then without a doubt, you are going to love this movie.
You ever think about that girl? What girl? The girl from high school who was with the lacrosse thing. No.
So, this is the end of episode 1 of 100 movies that everyone should watch. Today we took a look at the first half of the 2010s. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button, and make sure you join me next week when we cover the 2000s decade.